All right, can you guys hear me? There probably is a little bit of flash flooding that's going to happen with these storms. They have a decent amount of rain with them, and they're popping up all over, but they're moving only about 10 or 15, maybe 20 miles an hour. You can see on the camera here, this is the storm north of Baltimore around Shawan, Timonium, Warren Road. Yeah, 15 miles per hour. So 10 to 15 miles per hour is exceedingly slow storms. So they're not going to make it anywhere soon. And if I show you with the tracker system here, let me put the camera back down. They're going to basically just keep riding right along that edge of severe to not severe because of the high pressure. The high pressure is capping them. So what that means is, if you saw my picture earlier of the storm cam shot of the storm when this was over Westminster, it was mushroom clouding out and it started to get an anvil, but it was very low to the ground, even though I was 45 miles away from it. And what it's doing is it's expanding. They have to grow into the atmosphere. The higher they get, the stronger they are, because the more the updraft is pushing it. The mushroom cloud's growing up into the sky. And today, there's a pretty good cap, which is a boundary layer over top, holding them down towards the ground. So that's going to limit their power, and that's going to limit the ability to create hail. It's also going to limit their ability to be able to create lightning. So when they first fired up, they sparked off a lot of lightning, and now it's kind of raining itself out, and then it may start regathering strength. As you can see on the camera there at the bottom, it's raining pretty hard, but the trees aren't blowing around. So what happens is they billow up as they grow. They hit that cap, 35, 50,000 feet, whatever it's at. They bounce off of it basically and collapse back down on themselves. When they collapse, they tend to microburst underneath as everything comes dumping out from underneath the storm. And then they'll kind of rain themselves out for a while. They may start a new cycle, rebuilding. Look at that, there's a lightning strike far away from the storm, right while we were talking. So the nearest edge is in Phoenix, and that hit almost 7 miles away, 6.5 miles away, over by Long Green Manor. So that's the most dangerous part of these storms, by far, is the lightning strike ability. And they're going to be electrically charged as the afternoon heat. You can see these storms over here along 83 in the mountains. A lot of lightning strikes, and a lot of them are outside of the storm. These little plus signs are the lightning strikes. So these storms are all moving very slow. 10 miles per hour in the mountains along 81. 15 miles per hour, so 10 to 15 miles per hour, and they're going to be about this level, a little bit stronger, and then weaken again. Like this one just lost its severe thunderstorm warning, moving into Baltimore. Back and forth all day. We're not going to probably see any rotation or tornadoes out of them, but we're going to see severe microburst, downburst possibilities as the afternoon leads on. But this will probably take, if it's moving at 15 miles per hour, let's see, it's more than likely that a new storm would form, which there is one forming there over Essex before this storm gets there. So let's see here. "21 minutes to Parkville." That's halfway. So probably closer to an hour before it gets to Middle River. Yeah, 50 minutes, 49 minutes before it gets to Middle River from Towson. So very slow. So it's more than likely that a new cell would form, or you would find a severe thunderstorm warning to fall off before it starts up again. So it's going to be random pop-ups all along the I-95 corridor, Baltimore, DC, Philly. These will start growing. They'll bump that ceiling, then they'll settle back down. It'll be one of those days where it's not going to be extreme weather-wise, but the lightning is going to be able to cause a lot of problems with this power grid stressed out as bad as it is right now from the high temps. So that's my biggest concern here. What is going on? You can see on the radar here, the velocity radar, this storm lost its strength. It was much stronger when it was up on the Maryland-PA border, and now that it's moved down into the Baltimore area, it's got some flare-ups, but nothing severe. And it's got this gust front, dry line gust front popping out in front of it, where it's collapsed on itself already once, and it's due to the high mushroom clouds up above collapsing down on itself. That's why it's not making much lightning now, and it's basically just a rainstorm, more or less. If we flip it back to the high-res reflectivity, back it up a little. Put that in motion. You can see what I mean where, well, let's back it up a little more. It was pretty strong when it first started. Fired up quickly. Lots of lightning as it gathered up strength, and then it kind of rained itself out while this other line starts forming. So it's going to be one of those electrical days where you do not want your appliances and important electronics to be plugged in during these storms. And these storms are going to be able to throw out lightning bolts pretty far away from the actual storm itself into clear air. They'll generate randomly around the area, mainly west of the bay right now. And the Delaware radar is down again, I would like to mention. That's old radar from days and days ago, going up. So if you go to use the Dover KDOX radar It is not valid. Don't let that scare you. So reading this mesoscale discussion that Chris Benjamin's talking about, these are, the Storm Prediction Center puts these out for local offices, and they'll draw the area on the map they're talking about. You can see the brown outline there for our area. And what this means is just eastern West Virginia and the parts of Maryland, VA, and DC, south central PA. Watch is unlikely. No severe thunderstorm watch is probably going to be issued today because of the scattered development. More or less, the lapse rates are weaker than compared to areas further to the south, where I was talking about this morning. What they mean is in the West Virginia area where that storm is supposed to develop, and it hasn't yet, but really developed like I thought it would. So it must be experiencing a pretty good cap too. But they do have some severe cells going on down here. And they're getting those random cells firing up more or less along that boundary layer. But for us, they're not going to issue a severe thunderstorm watch, is what all that means. So I'll turn that back off. But more concerning is why the Dover radar is down again for so long. But that's what a mesoscale discussion is. It's just a localized area of concern. The Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma issues. And they will usually issue them and talk about it before they will actually issue a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm watch. A severe thunderstorm watch or a tornado watch, I should say. The main thing is that these cells are going to stay small because of the high pressure over top of the area, and they're not going to be able to get a whole lot of strength going. In the mountains, it might be a little worse because of upsloping, downsloping, orographic lift. I don't think Central Maryland is going to see a whole lot of action around, east of Frederick. These storms are going to be random timing anytime now. So the usual 3 to 6 o'clock will be the worst of it. and then we'll have growth until at least probably 4 or 5 o'clock. So they're going to randomly appear. They're going to randomly become severe, randomly become unsevere as they rain themselves out. And like what I just showed on the camera here is about all you're really going to see out of most of it. There might be some very localized, very small areas, like neighborhood to street sized, you know, cul-de-sac or full city blocks, areas of small areas of wind damage like that as they microburst, but when they start to collapse. But that's about it. I don't think we're really going to see a whole lot go on with these storms. It's probably going to be more like 5 or 6 o'clock after the peak. 3 to 4 o'clock is when the heat gets the hottest and the most energy becomes available for the area, but we're not going to really see a whole lot of action. As you can tell, the storms are having trouble growing past where they are now already. But with each hour, a little bit more energy builds into the atmosphere with solar energy, especially charging it, and the high temperature is working against the heat. I mean, the high temperature is working against the high pressure. So this line over here in the mountains has been leaving a little bit of damage. Some trees down, power lines down, but pretty minor. So you can see as they form, they're kind of bubbling along more than they are doing much else. And when they form, they fire off a lot of lightning at first. That's usually when they're the most dangerous. But I'm not seeing a whole lot of energy potential so far. And you can see here, this guy right here, the storm closing in on Baltimore. It's got that gust line, that big bow echo looking line forming out in front of the storms. Watch. See it right there? You'll see it form and come out, and that's where the storms have peaked and are collapsing again. So we are already running up against that wall, or ceiling I should say, that's keeping them from becoming too nasty. So they're not going to be like they were the past couple days. But yeah, Albany, you probably are not going to be happy afterwards, because they're not going to cool anything off. It's going to make it worse. All they're going to do is raise the humidity. But DC, Baltimore, eventually Philly, probably later in the evening, but York, Chambersburg along Route 30, and in the mountains, in the mountain valleys especially, like I said this morning, are going to be the worst of it. And that's due to the ridges, the mountains' height. As they cross those lines, they have to climb up over those mountain peaks 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet, some of them. And then they find themselves in a valley full of hot, humid air on the other side. They're only 400 or 500 feet above sea level with another mountain in front of them. So it's like a washboard going up and down, up and down, up and down. And just like with Hurricane Helene, as storms run up against the mountains, there's a thing called orographic lift, where they have to climb up over the mountains. And when a cloud full of water is pushed up in the atmosphere, it's colder and it condenses and it squeezes all that rain out. So the potential for flash flooding is a lot worse in the Appalachians and along 81 today than it is really in the Baltimore area or the DC area. So that's where we'll probably see some flash flooding happening. These storms are a little stronger because of that effect over there too. So that Romney storm, that was really putting out some energy there for a while. It's still got a lot of electricity coming out of it. we could take a look at that on Virginia radar. I mean the Virginia cameras. Let's look at those. So we're getting down by Strasbourg now. Camera. It really looks like it's just mostly rain down there as well, with heavy lightning. Looks like they've got some traffic issues on 81. Anytime there are storms and people pull off on the side of 81 for them, it causes all kinds of issues. It's one of the scariest roads to drive, honestly. Beautiful through there, though. Yeah, it's a little windy, a little gusty there. The top camera on the right side there is the camera nearest this big Strasbourg to Winchester to out into West Virginia, really. This whole area here is probably the strongest set of storms right now. Moving at 10 miles per hour. Slow today. And they're all going to be like this. Slow moving, drifting basically. Growing more than actually moving. And then we've got this Route 66 storm here that's... It was pretty stout, but it's not really putting a lot of lightning out now. We put that into... You can see it's growing and forming, bubbling along, getting thick again, so it's starting to reform. Once it crossed that mountain out there, it really flared up. What is that? Paris and Apple Mountain Lake. That ridge line right there is like the real first Appalachian Trail. Blue Mountain, Venus Hill, Mount Weather. So that's that ridge where the National Scenic Trail is, Appalachian National Scenic Trail. And that's kind of creating the storm as it crossed it. See, it flares up quickly. And what's happening there is, this is the Piedmont Plateau, where most of this land here in northern Virginia, along 95 between Richmond and DC and out towards Charlottesville and all, up to the base of the mountains is pretty much flat, lower to the sea level. And then you cross that first Blue Ridge there to get over into Luray, or you know, where the caverns are, or along 81, and that's the Shenandoah Valley, world famous Shenandoah Valley, and that is low and flat. So you've got that one big ridge mountain line, and they get their own basic kind of weather through here. And when you get into like Massanutten Mountain and all these unique features in the Shenandoah Valley, or if you've ever driven down Skyline Drive, you can really see what I mean, where it's a very unique setup. So the bulk of the mountains are just ridgeline after ridgeline after ridgeline. But when you get to the Shenandoah, it's big and wide and flat, and it has its own humidity, its own basic weather, wind patterns, and stuff like that under the mountains levels. And when you get into that hot, humid air today with these storms, they're going to flare up. So we might see some pretty strong hail and 60, 70 mile an hour wind gusts possible along 81. As for getting in the pool in Halethorpe, I would not recommend that. You've got cells creeping in, and Halethorpe is within strike distance. Looks like I got a Black Hawk landing outside. No, I do. Actually, it was 3 Apaches. That's pretty cool. It looked like that. Or it might have been Blackhawks. I couldn't tell on the small screen. But yeah, Sharon, grandkids would be probably in danger. You've got Halethorpe here. $10-mile radius. And the storms are already inside that. So I would not let them in the pool right now. These lightning strikes can strike out into the clear skies at least 10 miles. I've seen it 15, 20 sometimes. For example, let's look here. This just happened. So check this out, Sharon. This is why I say no. As the storm is moving here, right there, it's in Glencoe 183, and it made a plus sign right here, 9.5 miles away, even if it is sunny. They can fire off lightning at any time, in any direction, up to 10, 15 miles easily from the storm. So these 2 cells here, Harbor, Dundalk, the storm bolts, the plus sign, you are over here. So there's Hanover. These plus signs are lightning strikes current. If they're white, they're brand new. So they're just a little bit far away. 25 miles, so in a half hour they could be close enough to fire up. But these storms are cycling up and down. They can fire off lightning at any time. And after what happened in South Carolina yesterday, 18 people struck, 12 of them were children. It's definitely not something I would risk. More storms are forming behind these cells as well, so it's going to be one of those days where these storms are just excuse me, storms are just firing off randomly. You can see they're forming all along that Route 30 corridor, like I suggested this morning. They just keep forming right there. Gettysburg, Hanover, York, even over to Chambersburg, and behind that as well. So it won't last all day, but this is the peak time. Between 3 and 6 will be probably the worst of it. They'll be firing off everywhere. You can see just dozens and dozens of small cells. And some of these are leaving little damage signs behind. That's what these black marks. Tree down on power lines. Another one here. Excuse me. So we'll be here monitoring it. I'll be keeping a close eye on them, checking them occasionally for rotation. But I don't think we're going to see any. It's going to be mostly microbursting, very localized. Here's what it looks like. Watch this one as it creates this damage report. You can see that little bit of red that got bright for a minute. 30, 40 miles an hour in the cloud might translate to 50 or 60 miles an hour at the ground. So we can't really see down at the ground level. The further away from the radar we are, the higher up the radar looks into the sky. But as we get excuse me, as we get these cells forming, there's a lot of lightning coming out of them initially, and that's the big thing. All that positively charged lightning, look at that. Just incredible amounts of lightning strikes at first. As soon as it forms, it's discharging all that power. Dozens of them there. And then it'll start slowing down, losing its strength, and another cell will puff up and start its process over and over. So very low level of activity, but scattered and random. So everybody needs to be on alert. Yeah, Sharon, I don't know if you saw that story yesterday. It's posted on my timeline. In South Carolina, just outside of Columbia, there was a big water park type area where people go swimming, and dam is making a lake, and then there's an area where people go, very popular. 18 people struck with first and second degree burns. Nobody was killed, thank God. But so that is not what these are. These are just artifacts due to the way the radar works. And if you learn more about the radar, I cannot keep my voice going today. I'm gonna start texting. I'm tired of talking already anyway. But these things form all the time, and they're seen all the time. It's not some conspiracy. It's not some crazy thing that they're hiding from us. It's just a reflection and a weird artifact where the computer determines something that's not there. It's an error. Just like video cameras can get weird glitches. So I thought my microphone was on the whole time. Sorry about that. I'm not very bright. So this is what we're looking at. The height of the storm. 58,000 feet. That's the biggest one I can find. Most of them are not able to get that big. Usually when they get above 40, 45,000 is when they start becoming severe. When they get higher than that, into the 50 to 60,000 range, they can become hail forming and very large amounts of lightning generated, but that can happen at 30, 40,000 feet as well. So looks like we've got this storm in the Baltimore area reforming. Good bit of lightning starting to come back out of it as it's stretching out across the bay. I'm curious to see if the bay will recharge them or set them off. And we've got a severe warning down here. Ashburn, Reston, Dulles International, Sterling, Virginia, where our radar site is located. And that's what this hole and all these weird radial looking patterns are. You can see the radar site is actually right here. You zoom in further. There's the National Weather Service. And there's the radar tower. And the solar panels to run it. So that's the next rad radar in Sterling, Virginia, or the Baltimore, Washington office. Solar panels. Parking lot. And they've got some smaller dishes. Another smaller tower here. Some other things in the area. Comms building. More comms. And this is the field launch center where they launch the balloons and other type of sounding rockets and stuff like that. Small sounding rockets, maybe. I don't know if they do that from here, but they do the balloons here. So, and they have a wind tunnel for testing. So that's where that's at. And then Dover is on the Air Force Base. So more little storm reports are popping up. 3-inch branch in the broken Shenandoah Valley. 5 trees down on Asheville Road. And the storm that's near Martinsburg is now severe warned. And I've got, let's pull that up. And the middle camera on the right side there. Oh, glitchy. Doesn't look too bad though, just rain, some wind, it's dusting decently. You can see the trees swaying back and forth. I'll make that larger for you. So you can see the camera's shaking. The trees are blowing pretty good on the side of the road there. But overall, not too bad. Most of these cells will be precautionary severe thunderstorm warnings, just to let people know that it is a strong storm and it is possible that it could produce a strong downburst of wind at any time. But overall, it's not too bad so far. like I was saying, I didn't think we would get much more than what we're at now. So the Garrett County region, between Morgantown and Grantsville, Friendsville, another small cell moving in with a lot of lightning on I-68. Let's take a look at that. The bottom camera, I will change that. And you guys can go to these websites yourself when you need to figure out by the map version or by just typing in the search the general area you're trying to find. So we want to go to route I-68 here at the bottom. And the first camera is I-68 at the West Virginia line in Maryland. So it's wet there, but it's not doing much on that bottom camera. We'll move off to the next one. Blooming Rose Road. I'm still having trouble talking from my dental issue. So please excuse me for that. Now the severe thunderstorm warning is now in Garrett. Barely a storm going on, but we need to change something you should know about if you're tracking these storms. The mountains are a serious block to the radar, and you need to change radars from one side to the other to be able to see the storms properly, because it's a serious issue. So the Pittsburgh storm, decent little hail core in there for a minute, rotating, but it's faded off now, and it looks like we just got some gusts. Nothing major, 30, 40 mile an hour at the most, probably at the ground, but it can flare up. So you can see Pittsburgh is too far away. Can't see past the mountains very well. So we change back to the Baltimore Sterling radar to see on this side of the mountains. And it looks like they turned over back on just in time. Not working, not working, not working, and then suddenly they just turned it back on. So the backwards data is still going to be bad for another half hour, until we build up more scans. So this is not correct, not correct, not correct, and then suddenly correct. And if you look at the bottom time frame, it tells you. Let me put this dude back down here. If I pull the radar up, it shows you the timestamp of the frame. So those are all bad frames, and they just turned the radar back on at 3:02:50 p.m. First radar scan. So that was just turned back on. Good to know. Making progress. Still getting those odd radar skips. And the storms cause that, but Washington, D.C. also causes that. The artifacts I'm talking about here on the radar. We put them in motion. See them dance around. Quite common to get these beams on certain days, certain checking my camera. Sorry about that. I thought I heard something outside, but more or less the what's going on here? Lightning strikes happening all over. Storm in Martinsburg is really putting them out. Put the radar back down. Proper place. So 3 to 4 o'clock is what I call the magic hour. And that you can see here is why we get a lot of storm development in the 3 to 4 o'clock hour, because that is when the solar energy reaches its maximum effect on the atmosphere. And the amount of fuel available to storms reaches its peak. So again, the mountains and into Virginia, and then up in northern or central to southern PA were my main concerns this morning, and that looks like it's panning out as they cross into the Maryland PA border region and then south into Baltimore, DC. They're kind of like falling apart, not able to maintain their strength. But let's look at these cells around Baltimore. Change the camera. One good camera to look at is I-95 at the 395 interchange. Way up in the sky. Big view. Usually looking south. And that's where the stadiums and all are when you go by on 95. You can see a lot from this camera. And sometimes spiders. So pretty good shot there. So we'll keep that one up in the corner. And then we'll take a look at West Virginia cam, Martinsburg. It's getting dark in that area. That camera's still glitching out pretty bad. heavy rain still. Got some traffic issues a little further south where the heaviest of the rain is. You can see there, I-81 down exit 8. Extremely heavy rain on the middle camera there. And then on Virginia, you've got that cell in Reston to Sterling that's banging away. Let's look at that. A lot of traffic issues around Reston and Herndon. Oh wow. Can't see anything. It's raining its ass off there. Top right camera. That's nearest to Herndon, Virginia. That storm is rocking, so that's this cell right here. And that cell is closer down to Linden Hall, Manassas. So extremely heavy rain, some decent wind there. Looking around Dulles. Perfectly fine on the west side. Very hit or miss with these storms. Extremely. Perfectly fine near Chantilly. Just dark. Seems fine there. Looks like the action might be more up towards Reston and Herndon. No. Passed it through already, that fast. Just heavy rain there. So we'll leave that one up. That's about the best representative of the worst around the Dulles International, Centerville, Reston, Herndon, Sterling, Ashburn. And then we've got this line moving towards Culpeper, down past pretty far south of 66. Really moving towards Culpeper, like the Lake of the Woods, Fredericksburg area, slowly. But it's even lost most of its strength compared to an hour ago. They're so slow moving that it's just going to take a long time. Now we've got the cell over Annapolis, Glen Burnie. Very small. Let's look at that. Do a split screen. That's new, so let's monitor the winds on that as it develops. Got to stay hydrated. Excuse me. a little bit of microbursting going on with that cell. Over Pasadena and Glen Burnie. We see this a lot through here for some reason with these type of cells. It's not strong though. 20, 30 miles an hour in the sky. When you're around here, you use BWI's radar, get a much closer, more detailed view. You can see the gust front coming off. Change that back to base velocity on this side, and you can see a much closer to the ground, more detailed view, and you can see now we're getting 30 mile an hour, 35 miles an hour. Better, closer up view of the gust front and the microburst coming out of the storm. Put that in motion. Not extreme, but putting some lightning out in the Glen Burnie area, Ferndale, Pasadena. Not far from BWI. Good blast of wind. Rolling right down 648, 100 to the east of 97. So let's take a look at 97's cameras, which hardly ever work correctly. But that's our closest bet. Oh, so right over VW Medical Center there, Baltimore Washington Medical Center, is where the stronger winds are. Looks like it's still developing 40 plus mile an hour. Right there along Route 100 by VW Medical Center. Route 2, Route 100, 97. And moving right down Route 2. So it's a decent little microburst coming out of there. It may not be damaging, but it's right on the edge. 40 to 50 miles an hour can knock down some limbs, cause a little localized issue. Knock some limbs down on the power lines, and then you'll get a short. So that's what I've been warning about with these small cells. And if you're on the water, that definitely can flip you over. But it looks like it's pretty much over land. Centerville sell Sterling, Centerville. Not really doing much, but man, they are popping up everywhere now. Look at that. Back to normal. They're just everywhere. Small sales everywhere right now. So, like I said, 3 to 4 o'clock, magic hour. That's the peak time. That's why we call it magic hour. Alright, looks like we're starting to get a pretty good storm going here in Serena Park, Cape St. Clair, towards Annapolis, and the Bay Bridge. And I've got the Bay Bridge camera pulled up, and it is quite a strong storm. So let's keep an eye on that for a few. Special marine warnings for boaters all through the Patapsco River, Inner Harbor, down to the Chester River, and shipping lanes to the Kent Island area for squalls. You could see 34 knots or greater squall coming and capsize small boats quickly until 4 p.m. at least. It's only moving at 10 miles per hour, folks. Very slow. It's more or less growing, but it's putting out some pretty good wind. Let's switch over to the BWI radar and keep a closer eye on this. Getting some very strong storms coming down Route 2 into the Arnold, Serena Park area. This thing's microbursting out. You can see on the radar there on the left of the screen how it's kind of mushroom cloud billowing out. And we see this happen over Serena Park all the time in the summer. So this has some pretty strong winds in it now, starting to develop. We've got some 40, 45, 50, 50, 55 mile an hour gusts in there. Right at the Magathie River, Arnold, Cape St. Clair, Serena Park, in that general area. So you can see on the screen there, pretty heavy winds. Excuse me. got a textbook, I mean completely textbook downburst coming out of this cell. Look at this, it's like we've seen this every summer around this time, right over Sabrina Park for some reason. Happened last year, last June, and here we are again, a big mushroom cloud going off in all directions, winds rushing away. Some of these winds are 50, 60 mile an hour, so Bay Bridge is about to get smacked with it. I've got the camera up here. Make that a little larger. So we can see what happens. Zoom in on the bay here. And the bridge. This is the bridge right here. So that's the Route 50 Bay Bridge that we're looking at on the camera right here. Looks like it's starting to slow down a little bit. It was much worse over by Arnold, the Magothy River area. Route 2 comes down between Sabrina Park and Severn River or Magothy River, so hopefully this slows down a little bit. It's still going to be 40 to 50 miles per hour as it hits the Bay Bridge. Rushing out in all directions. A microburst is small and will affect the town at most, usually a neighborhood, a street, a couple streets, a couple city blocks. This is a much larger downburst where the whole storm has collapsed on itself and air is rushing out in every direction. But the direction of travel is usually where the winds are the strongest out ahead. Adds a little extra fight to it.